Our project is on application development, and the group name is RJBT. So here are the 6 steps of the mobile app development process. I'm going to go over the first 2 steps. We got strategy, and we got step 2, analysis and planning. All right, we're going to have Jordan go through step 3, which is the UI design, internal design, and Roman's going to talk about the application development. And then we're going to have Brandon go through the testing and the development and support, and then I'm just going to wrap everything up. So we have step 1, strategy. Typically, it's the first stage of application development. You want to try to get your idea of the application into something that would be successful, get an idea of what you want your target to be. You also need to implement this into a mobility strategy. So you want to take a look at your competition and see how you're going to fit in with everybody else. Now, some other phases of the strategy are going to be, you need to identify your application users. Okay, you need to take a minute to examine your competition, like I mentioned before. You need to establish goals for your application and look at an impact that you're going to make. So you want to see what changes you want your application to make. And you're going to select a platform such as iOS or Android, and those are the 2 most popular platforms currently. And we got step 2, analysis and planning. This step is you kind of get a more in-depth look at what you brainstormed during the strategic process. At this point, your application begins to take shape, and you sort of move toward the goal that you set previously. Now, following this step, you create a project roadmap. Now, this includes prioritizing your requirements for your application, and you're going to base the requirements on milestones, which are going to be in certain groups depending on the part of the application that's being completed. And we're going to talk a little bit about the minimal viable product or MVP. This comes into play if there's a concern about time or money when it comes to the analyzing and planning process. The minimal viable product is this is what an application would be if at its most basic form. This is something that a developer would push out at its initial launch and have its first customers review it, give feedback. This could be positive or negative, and they could use this information to provide a blueprint for developers in the future to build on top of what they already have. Now, skills and platforms for planning. This is part of the planning phase that includes identifying the skills needed for the app development initiative. Okay, so for example, you're going to have the iOS or Apple and Android mobile platforms. They have different technology. So, you want to make sure that you have developers that have knowledge of both systems, so that way you can make sure that your application is going to work properly with both. All right, guys, so now we're going to go ahead and move towards step 3, and I'm going to pass this on to Jordan.
There are 5 steps to UI and UX design. There's information architecture, warframe, style guide, mockups, and prototype. With these 5 steps, the purpose of these 5 steps is basically how the app looks and what is it used for. With the information, it's how does the app support the user and what will it do for the user. And the wireframe is basically how the app is going to look, is the sketch, and then you give it a style, and then the mockups is like the finishing touches, with that you use from the style with the font and everything, and color. And then there's prototype, and prototype is basically the finishing touches and the final look. Those are the 5 steps to style guide to the design. To the designs. Now I'm going to let Roman explain app development.
I will be talking about the technical part of app development. Planning remains an integral part of this phase in mobile app development process. Before an actual development programming effort starts, you will have to define the technical architecture, pick a technology stack, and define development milestones. A typical mobile app project is made of 3 integral parts: backend server technology, APIs, and mobile app front end. Backend server technology. This part includes database and server-side objects necessary for supporting functions of your mobile app. If you're using an existing backend platform, then modifications may be needed for supporting the desired mobile functionality. The most popular languages to develop the backend is Python, Java, and PHP. Moving to API, which is an application program interface, is a method of communication between the app and a backend server database. When you use an application on your mobile phone, the application connects to the internet and sends data to the server. The server then retrieves the data, interprets it, and performs the necessary actions and sends it back to your phone. The application then interprets the data and presents you with the information you wanted in a readable way. This is what an API is. All this happens via API. Moving to the last phase of a technical programming part is the app front-end development. Front-end is UI, is also known for user interface. In most cases, mobile apps consist of the interactive user experiences and use an API and a backend for managing data. In some cases, when an app needs to allow a user to work without internet access, the app may utilize local data storage. You can utilize almost any web programming language and databases for a backend. For native mobile apps, you will have to choose a technology stack required by each mobile OS platform. iOS apps can be developed using Objective-C or Swift programming language. Android apps are primarily built with Java or Kotlin. There is more than one programming language and technology stack for building mobile apps. The key is picking the technology stack that is best suited for the mobile app. Mobile technologies advance much faster with new versions of mobile platforms. Furthermore, new mobile devices are released every month. With platforms and devices rapidly changing, agility is essential for building mobile apps with timelines and budgets. If time to market is priority, use an agile development approach. This approach supports frequent software releases with completed functionality. Defining development milestones as part of the agile development plan supports developing your mobile application and interaction. As each development milestone completes, it is passed on to the app testing team for validation. Next, we will talk about testing and support.
When creating a mobile app, it has 5 steps to follow. For example, user experience, functional testing, performance, security testing, and device and platform testing. The user experience testing helps to ensure the final product matches the user experience created by the app design team. Functional testing tests the functionality of your app, covering as many potential testing conditions as possible. When it comes to performance testing, ask yourself questions like, how well is your app responding to the user requests, or how fast are the app's loading screen? Security testing is very important for mobile apps because there can be identity theft or suspicious activities with login information, which could lead to getting hacked. Since new mobile devices enter the market every 12 months with new hardware, firmware, and design, it's important to do a device and platform testing because mobile operating systems are updated every few months. When releasing a mobile app, it requires submitting to the App Store, for example, Apple App Store for iOS apps or the Google Play Store for Android apps. Most apps require preparing metadata like app title, subscription category, keyboards, launch icons, and App Store screenshots. Always encourage users to provide your company with feedback and suggestions for your app. Frequently patch the app with improvements to keep the user encouraged. App development is an ongoing process and will continue after the essential launch as you receive user feedback and build essential functionality. Follow this same process for all of the mobile apps that you created. Following this mobile app development process will ensure a successful launch of your app.
All right, so we got the conclusion here. We're just going to go ahead and wrap things up. You got an idea of each step involved in the making of an application. So the world of application development is always changing. It's extremely competitive. It's become even more so in the past couple of years due to smartphones and social distancing technology. The pandemic has made people that normally wouldn't use applications use them, to communicate with one another. And when you're making an application, it's an ongoing process and it requires lots of feedback. It can be negative or positive, and you want to use it to your advantage. And that's the exciting thing about developing applications is that the sky's the limit. You can just there's so many creative things you can do with them. To make things easier for people, to make things, to add an exciting twist on stuff and so forth. Anyway, all right, thanks for watching.